Whether you say it or you don't say it and just show it with your actions. You give the commitment to her because you also want some level of commitment in the relationship. It's good. So you give her the commitment. All right. This is what ends up happening. Whether you say it or you don't say it and just show it with your actions. You give the commitment to her because you also want some level of commitment in the relationship. It's good for you. What you've done is you've boosted her perception of her own value up to being commensurate with your value. When you give away that commitment, you boost her to your value. Sometimes you'll boost her past your value. Okay. That's actually usually the next step. But at least in the beginning, you're boosting her to right about close to your value. Understand, okay, you could be a billionaire philanthropist with all of the boxes checked, impeccable game, impeccable everything. And you go with a really cute, average girl in a small town or something, right? And she ends up going for you despite the perceived risks. Okay, that can happen. The perceived rewards are higher, so she goes with you. And let's say you end up like marrying her or moving her in with you and dedicating yourself to a relationship with her. What you just done, your monkey brain said to her monkey brain, okay, having two monkey brain conversations. You know what? I'm picking you because you are as valuable or at least more valuable than all the other women out there. So I'm going to be in a commitment with you. When you make that statement through your actions, right, which is ultimately what she wants. She wants to beat out all of the other girls. When she gets to beat out all the other girls, well, to you, her mate value is the highest out of all the other girls, which means you've dragged her at least up to close to your level, if not equal or above you. Women want the guy that they commit to and trust to see her as the best. Remember, women are solipsistic. They look at things through a hypergamous lens. You do not as a man. However, they think you do. So when you pick her and bring her in as a commitment, she wants to know and believe and feel that you think she is the best that you could do, in the same way that she would pick a guy that she's not settling with, right? The guy that she would want to pick is the best she can do. She wants to know that she's the best you can do, which means she beats out all the other girls. That's cuck psychology, right? Just like if she sees you as the best that she can do, you've beat out all the other guys. You've effectively cucked everybody else. She wants to know from the female side, she's cucked all the other girls, right? So this is why women get really frustrated or upset because of the vernacular that got pushed out when guys are like, a woman's not equal to a man. Okay. That statement would piss off, that makes angry everybody as a female. Okay. Even if they're not feminist, because they want to be perceived as an equal. They want to know that you perceive her at least as close enough to equal. Unless a girl has a traditional conservative background and consuming I don't know, red pill content or something, and sort of she's changing her brain and how things work and changing her mind or whatever. Most girls, without having any conscious awareness of any of these arguments, they don't want you to act like, we'll put it like this. You don't have to say she's my equal. They don't want you to act like she's below you. You know what I mean? That's not going to turn her on. That's not going to make her happy. That won't give her a sense of safety or security enough to even want to be with you necessarily in a full-on relationship commitment. You know what I mean? She may still be attracted to you, and that's another conversation. But, and this is why collectively they want to be seen as, wait a second, no, we're 50-50. Because they want to know, you've just boosted them, that you perceive her this way, whether she actually is or not. Right? Whether she perceives herself that way or not, she wants to know that you perceive her that way. But remember, you have the frame. So when you give her that commitment and give her all the prizes, and by the way, this is not an implication that in order to change this dynamic, you don't give her prizes or commitment. That would be actually, that's one way, but that way usually doesn't go too well. That usually fails also. Okay. That's not going to be the conclusion here if you're already thinking that. But at any rate, you are raising her mate value. Okay. Just by offering a commitment, you raise her mate value to close to yours, almost equal. All right. So she just went from being down here, right, being lower and trying to earn this commitment. Well, now you just reached out with your hand, picked her up and said, "You're my girl." Well, she feels great about that at first. And then what happens is she's already got the things. All right. So the dopamine to want to get the things isn't kicked in, which means there's not those precursors aren't there to kick in a little bit higher testosterone for her, which is already low testosterone. So now her desire for sex goes down. Not as much in the chemical system for her to desire sex. And then on top of that, the mental paradigm of using sex as power. Here's another thing. Once you bring her to this level, okay, she already perceived you as higher, and then she's going to use her womanly ways to get you to commit to her. What happens is she has a sense of insecurity in herself because she was down here. And what changed? The only thing that changed was your perception. You reached out your hand and pulled her up after a period of time. That's what happened. You said, "You know what? I like having sex with you enough. I like, hanging out with you enough. Come on, be with me." That's all you did. To her, though, that's a massive gesture of eliminating competition and going with her. So what happens now? So deep down inside, unconsciously, she questions her own value and why you have her up here at first. So that's when the insecurity kicks in. That's when the low self-esteem is perceived now. Not during the beginning phases, of course, of the commitment when the excitement's there, but once that excitement starts to wear off, should I really be here? And with that comes a deep-seated fear of losing the relationship, and she projects all those insecurities on the guy, right? Because men are cheat. She's going to cheat on me if I don't, do A, B, and C to keep him under control. If he gets a little bit too high self-esteem about himself, you know what? I'm going to take him down a notch. I'm going to say this or that to make him feel. I don't want him to get a big head. I've had girls say that all the time after bomb sexual experiences. Well, I don't want it to go to your head, but that was the best sex I ever had. Really? You don't want it to go to my head? Somehow giving me the highest of compliments is going to do what? Right? Make her lose power, right?
Once there was a caveman named Grok who had eyes for the lovely Neela. Neela was the most beautiful cave woman in the tribe, with her sparkling eyes, infectious laughter, and fat booty. But Grok wasn't the only one smitten by her. All the Chads and Tyrones of the land wanted her too. He tried different ways to attract her, showing off his prowess with a spear, doing favors, bringing gifts, and even serenading her under the moonlit sky. But Neela never seemed to return his affections. She was always kind to Grok, but Grok was only 5'10", and Neela only had eyes for the 6-foot-tall Chads, or so he thought. Determined more than ever, Grok decided to do a pickup artist boot camp in a faraway land. He built up his confidence and learned how to talk to hundreds of cave Stacys, even winning the affection of a few. But when Grok came home to use his newfound skills on Neela, he could sense that same disinterest in her eyes. He could get average Stacys to want to bear his children, but could not win over Neela, or any cave woman as beautiful as she. The pickup artistes told Grok it's a numbers game, and that he had to sleep with thousands of drunk Stacys to get a beauty like Neela. Confused, Grok went to the secret societies of different color pills for advice. But all they could offer were different chants of, "Just next her, bro," and "She only bangs Chads," over and over again. If only I could learn real seduction skills to make Neela fall in love with me, Grok thought. Neela went on to live happily ever after, having babies with a man named Og. Og had secretly learned sexpionage skills. Og was 5'5". The problem with pickup courses today is that they rely on the numbers game. You talk to hundreds of girls and finally a chick wants to sleep with you. And usually these aren't the women of your dreams. Sexpionage is my new course that will train you how to actually seduce the women that you want. Not just get dates with women who you aren't that excited about. You will learn deep persuasion skills borrowed from the elite corners of the espionage world that will train you how to persuade anyone and how to seduce anyone, from the woman you just met to your wife or girlfriend. Enrollment opens April 22nd and closes on the 26th. Click the link and don't miss this opportunity. It's the only one you'll get this year.
The reason why she has to have this power is because she doesn't feel good about herself and she doesn't feel strong. So really, she kind of believes she's about down here somewhere, and then you've lifted her up here. And so in order to keep it together, she's got to do what she knows how to do to maintain power and control in the relationship. And the risks of losing power now and having you see her as lower value become higher than the reward of sex. So now we got that playing a role. So we have neurochemically, she's not executing that dopamine and that testosterone to get anything anymore. So we don't have the right chemical and hormonal concoction for higher sex drive. And then add to it, if she happens to be any level of insecurity, they all have insecurities, by the way, every single one of them. It's just how much and how heavy it is. She's got to boost herself up. She doesn't like it. She is not even going to have you do it. You already lifted her up with a commitment. So now she has to continually boost herself up to stay there. And a lot of times what they do is they execute power in the relationship. Now, in this society as well, there's a distrust for men, but that distrust, women haven't trusted men for all of history, right? So this is not like a new thing, but not trusting men, that plays a role. The more she doesn't trust men in general, the less she'll trust the guy she's with, the more power she's going to try to execute in the relationship. And part of executing that power is withholding the sex. She even starts to associate her low self-esteem as a product of her guy, because he lifted her up and said, okay, now be this woman that can be my companion. And so she's like, well, wait a second, I'm not going to change. You need to love me for who I am. Yeah, what is she like really saying? It's like, I don't need to change or take any accountability for anything. It's how dare you say I need to better myself every day. Like you have to, as a man, right? Like all that stuff is outrage because she doesn't feel as good about herself and strong about herself. And this is a her thing, not even a you thing. You're not doing anything wrong or different necessarily. Sometimes guys are, sometimes aren't. Not the point though. And so that thing is, it plays this role in, and she has this resentment now from her guy. Plus the less sex means less neurochemical oxytocin connection. So you have a whole bunch of things going on. Remember, this is complex and stupid people can't follow. So hopefully you're smart and you can follow. Not the oxytocin isn't there as much because there's less sex, there's less things to stimulate that. So she doesn't have the emotions of attachment and bonding as high once this sex goes down. This insecurities kick in, and she takes out some of those bad feelings on her man, her partner, because ultimately what it is she doesn't trust men. She doesn't trust her partner. And, she's mad at the guy she chose for the fact that she doesn't trust men. And so that brings in divisive feelings and stuff like that, which is in competition with her other good feelings. So she's constantly in this, emotionally unstable place. So by effectively lifting her up, she loses the dopamine, she loses the testosterone drives for that drive the sexual behavior. Transactionally, the cost benefit analysis isn't there. There's perceiving more risk for more frequent sex. And then some resentments building because of a lot of times her low self-esteem. Low self-esteem is a product of it, because if she was better than you, she wouldn't have low self-esteem, but then she wouldn't go with you. If this line here was switched, if you were down here and she was up here, she wouldn't have the attraction to you in the way that she wants. She wants to be attracted to a guy who she perceives as a little bit genetically better, offering more value than her. And so if she sees herself as the one bringing all the value and you don't bring it to the table, her, including sexually, including everything else, emotionally, right? You become a dependent for her. She's no longer attracted beginning. So when the line is the other way, and she sees you as the higher value and she's wanting that commitment, wanting, having high sexual desire for you, all that stuff, it's only natural for her to question her own ability to keep this thing around, right? There's level of insecurity that plays a role. We call that dread, but dread can also be a detriment. Using dread to the advantage of both you and your partner is what I teach. Okay. One of the things I teach, because she's going to have it anyway. And with dread and not having a right framework for her to use it to her advantage, if she was attracted to you to begin with, she will have that dread even when you reach up and pick her up and bring her to her level. What she's going to then do is do a bunch of things to try to boost herself up and have power. And those things will be against you. Okay. It'll be in order to feel powerful in this relationship. And then if you allow her to do those in certain divisive ways, what ends up happening is she flips it into her believing her mate value is actually higher than yours. Right. And then that's when the attraction is gone.